Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. During these last few weeks, I've shown you a variety of instruments, and I've made a little list here just to jog my memory as well as yours. But I've showed you cylindrical instruments, conical instruments, sassotos, penny whistles, types of mouthpieces, types of reeds, end-blown flutes, bamboo flutes, the Caribbean flutes, and flutes from other countries. So today what I'm going to do is show you translucent flutes. Now what I mean by that is the fact that these flutes that I brought in today, for the most part you can see through them, or they're transparent in some way. And I know that there's no special category of flutes that are called translucent flutes, but I'm using that term because of the fact that there are some instruments that the plastic is colorful but pretty clear, so you can actually see part of it. And my reason for doing that is the fact that I'd like to show you, and I'll do it first, the construction of these recorders, these melody flutes. You know, the similarities between the penny whistles and the sassotos and the ocarinas and all of those instruments with the recorders and regular flutes, and I've shown you a lot of that already. But what I haven't gone into are the flutes, the construction of the flutes and recorders and how you can actually see that. So what I'm going to start first is to discuss. I'm going to do first a discussion of how these instruments are made. So I'm going to use these charts first, and I'm going to show you my flutes that will, hopefully you'll be able to see part of it. But here's a chart with a recorder, just a plain regular recorder. It's my version of it. And I've shown the front part of it, the back part of it, and these are just you know, shrunk up ones. I've put them on a photocopier and shorten them up some. This is the construction of a recorder. The mouthpiece, of course, is always going to be on top where you put it in your mouth. The bell and the foot joint is going to be always here. And this is going to be the body. But there are some names here. This here is the head joint. It actually goes down here, the full head joint. And in here is that little circular area flat on top called the labium. Every instrument has them. And then you have part of the labium is slanted inward. That's called the lip. And the actual little place here where the air goes through is called the window. It always looks black because no light ever gets into it. And you can also call this a bore because it's a tube. You can also call this area a windway where all the air goes. So you've got the mouthpiece, the labium, the lip of the labium, the window of the labium, the head joint, the bore, the windway. This is going to be the foot joint, and if it flares out, it's called a bell. Now, recorders don't really have much of a bell. I want to mention it because you get bells in a lot of instruments. You get them like with the song flute, or actually with the tonette, not the song flute, but the tonette. Saxophones have them, trumpets have them. A lot of instruments have that flared out like a bell area, and that's what it's called. It's called the bell. In a clarinet, this would be a barrel, but it's not called that on the recorder. This is the basic kinds of construction. Now, you can't see by this what's actually going on in the inside. So I have a couple of drawings here. In the inside of the instrument, I keep talking about the block. This is the block, and it forms part of the mouthpiece, the back of the mouthpiece. It attaches to the back wall of the instrument. This would be the back of the instrument. And then on the front would be like the mouthpiece, but there is a little slit. There is a little place here where air can go through, and this is the labium right here. From the side, you would have a little slanted area. I know it doesn't show up here, and a little area which is called the window. So when you play it, you're actually putting your air down this little slit between the block and the front of the instrument. And I'm going to try to show some of that to you today, and I'm not sure whether I'll be successful. I brought in the translucent instruments because you can see more in them, because the light passes through. Then, of course, this is your bore. This whole thing is going to be the head joint, and so this is how it's made. Now, it's really pretty simple construction, but it's amazing what it can do. Now, I made this sketch of the same thing. It's just kind of a sketch. I looked at the instrument and decided I'd try and draw it out. This would be the mouthpiece, and this would be the block. The block should be maybe a little more attached to the back. It's a part of the mouthpiece, but you can see there's a space right here. And you can also see that there's a little plastic piece that goes across. If you put up, and I'm going to do it, if I put up this conductor's baton, I can't get it past that point. Then the labium is going to be here. I didn't draw that in, but that's where it's going to be. And if I look at it from a different perspective, you can see a plastic piece. I just made it circular. It covers the whole top. It would be right here. And then there's a plastic piece that goes up. This is the block. And then you have that slit. Now, it's interesting what I can see when I show this. This is just, I have this diagram of all of the recorders. They're kind of accurate in terms of what their sizes are in comparison with one another. The one instrument that's missing, of course, is the folded bass. That's not in here. This is the folded bass. You can see the arrangement of the keys. When I have it in here, you can see that the mouthpiece kind of curves over. It doesn't go straight up. This is supposed to be what that represents, that curve. Now, and this is the folded bass, which that other diagram does not have that I mentioned, and it does curve over. This is the mouthpiece. This is the labium right here, the thumb hole right here, and the keys. The advantage of that folded bass is that it does have some keys where a lot of recorders have no keys at all. There's even a couple down here, and that helps you to play it. It's actually easier to play than the tenor, which has no keys at all, maybe one or two, but that's it. And this is the great bass. Here's the mouthpiece is actually something called a bocal. It's a metal piece that goes to the side and you blow in right here. Because the instrument is so tall, there's just no way that you're going to be able to play it and play it up here and have enough room for the instrument to go to the floor. There's also a little brace here so that the instrument won't be put on the floor. You just put it on that metal piece. But this is the great bass, sometimes called the straight bass or the big bass. Now, let me show you, before I get back to that, I want to show you these translucent instruments and demonstrate what I've been talking about. Here is one of them. This is an instrument that is perfectly clear. You can see my hand, I hope, beside it. But if you look at it, there seems to be nothing but a tube here, and that's basically what it is, until you get to the mouthpiece right here. When you get to the mouthpiece, there's more going on. I'm going to try to help you to see it, but I'm not sure how close the camera will be able to get. There is a piece of plastic in it that forms the shape of the mouthpiece, goes all up and down, and then it catches itself with this line here, this plastic piece here. That's the whole mouthpiece, and the labium is right underneath it. Now, I brought it in because it is clear. You can see through it, but let me take it apart. I have one here that I have apart, and here's the head joint. Now, if I put my conductor's baton up the head joint, I can get it up so far and no further. That whole area is covered by a piece of plastic, because the block and everything is plastic. And then there's a piece of plastic, and of course I can't show you from underneath because I can't get through, but it goes like from here, and it's the exact shape of the mouthpiece, goes curved down here, and it is attached to that round piece, that's the block. If you look in the back, I don't know if you can see it. I can see it a little bit. I'm looking at the monitor. But there's like a little line right here. That's a part of that block. So you have that plastic gizmo in there, and what happens is that it prevents the air from going straight through. All instruments have to have a way to block off air on one end and allow air to go down the opposite end, because if it doesn't, you're not going to get a tone. So let me show you a couple here that are really expensive, nice instruments, not just something I picked up at the dollar store. This is a Clark's. It is clear. I mean, if to put my hand behind it, you can see my hand. This is the mouthpiece. I would like to call it a fife. It's called a flute. They're Hall's flutes, but I'd like to call it a fife in the sense that it has that round cylindrical mouthpiece, and this end is blocked off. And I would normally on a flute call it a cap. It's just a piece of glass, and it just, it just closes it up. As long as it closes it up, that's all you need, because the air goes down in this direction. This is particularly beautiful when you take a look at the flowers and all of the things that are hand decorated on here. This is all done by hand. They blow it by hand, they paint it by hand, they make sure that it pitches perfectly, and it's an absolutely beautiful instrument, pretty expensive. I haven't seen them advertised for quite a while, so I don't know if he's still doing it. But it's a marvelous instrument, and I have one almost exactly like it. And I'm going to, let's see, right beside it. This is the flute. The shorter one I showed you was a piccolo. But take a look at this. Look at the beautiful artistic designs, which are painted on by hand, by the way. It's all hand blown. You have that area which would be a cap, but it's just flat and covered. And then you have that little tiny mouthpiece right there. And then you have the designs on it, which are gorgeous. And I've had people ask me to hold it, and I'm hesitant because you just don't want to drop it. And I tell people you can do everything that you want to it, but you can't drop it, because who knows what would happen. But there it is, an instrument that you can really see through. The arrangement of the mouthpiece is a little bit different because it is like a fife. It's not like a Fipple recorder mouthpiece. Therefore, you don't have the block and you don't have the labium and the things that you get with the recorders. But it is a flute, or you can call it a fife, but it is a flute or a fife, whichever you prefer to call it, and it plays beautifully and it's on pitch. So what I want to remind you of is that even though an instrument may be very simple in its construction, as this is, these holes, finger holes, tone holes, have to be perfect. They have to be the right size. They have to have exactly the right position on this tube, which basically this is, or you're not going to get the right tones. This is perfect pitch. You can play a scale in the key of C on it, and it's just a nice instrument, and it really works well. It's a 2-octave instrument. And they put a lot of time and a lot of effort in it. And as I said, it's all handmade. But it is, I'm going to call it translucent. You can see through it. I brought up then some other ones. For example, I don't know if this is the best place to hold it, but there it is. I love the color. And I was hoping you'd be able to see, and you can a little bit from the back, although I'm not sure the camera can get it close enough, a little bit of that plastic apparatus which is in the back of it. And I can, when I feel it with my hand, I can feel that block because there's a little indentation there, and I can follow it around with my finger. But there it is. And if I hold it to the side, it has that same slant. And if you look in the front, It looks a little thicker. The color's a little bit more dense, so you can't see through it so well. That's a part of that apparatus in top of the Fipple mouthpiece that makes it work. If I were to take any of these instruments that are really recorders, and I know you're not going to be able to see this, but if I'm to hold it here and look in that window, then I can see the slit which takes the air from the top to that point. There's no way, though, that I can show it to you on television. But here's my yellow, well, it's actually gold. Some people might consider it orange, but I think of it as gold. And this is my yellow one. And you can see in the back, I can put my finger right on it. There's a line. So you see that goes right in and fits right in with the instrument. I want to show you something else about this instrument. I wouldn't have bought it if I'd seen it, but I'm glad I did buy it. If you look in the back, you can see this yellow. It's like smudged. It was poorly put together. That's glue. I think it's glue. And they tried to put it together, and I don't know what happened to it, but it dripped somehow. And no one ever changed it, so I may have the only instrument in the world where you can see dripped glue solidified in a recorder. Now, isn't that a collector's item just by that? But this is a gold one, but notice, you can see my hand. I love these instruments. Sometimes I buy them just simply because of the color. Some of them play, and some of them don't. Here's another one. This one is orange. No question about it. Now hold it to the side. Hold it in the back. You can see that line. And here again, it seems to have a little thicker part. That's where the block is, or part of the block is. But it's a beautiful instrument. I'm going to try playing it. Now, don't expect it to sound very good. I'm not going to play anything significant, but some of these do play a little. Usually you can get about 4 or 5 notes and then they fail. I can get down to here, but it's not good quality tone. That's about what you're going to get from them. And it does play some notes, and so kids get them and they play them, but the notes are off pitch, and it's not in pitch with itself, and the quality isn't that good. But very, very nice to teach from, very, very nice to see it, because you can see what the internal part of it is. I'm going to show you a green one that I have. And it looks kind of awkward, doesn't it? On the monitor, it looks like it's blue, but to me, it looks like it's green. And it's the same thing. It has sparkles on it, so you might be able to see the sparkles. It only cost me $1. Here's the slant. You can't see the inside of it, but you can see that it is translucent. I can see my hand, and kids love them. And I think they're very fascinating to look at. They should be able to play better than they do because they're constructed like any other recorder, but for some reason they miss it. The low note is sharp. So it misses the lower note. It's significantly out of pitch, but it does play fairly easily. So that's the green one. I have a blue one put out by the same company, so I'm going to show you that. And I love blue is not my favorite color, but I do love this shade of blue. And it's very, very nice. And it also has the sparkles on it. And you can see the slant, you can see there's a little slanting in where the lip is, and then the window above it. I'm going to try it just for the fun of it. does the same thing. It sharpens that last note. Well, I got it. You have to fool around with it. You should be able to get it normally, but it doesn't kind of work like that. I have a nice little purple one. And this one isn't shaped exactly like a recorder, but that's what it's meant to be. It's sparkly. I love the color. One of my favorite colors. You can't really get the high notes, and it hesitates before it plays the low notes. I don't know why it does that. Let's see, you can see the pink one right here. I think the same company put a lot of these out, and you might have a little easier time seeing the block and the inside of it. But whatever, they're about the same. I had these two, I haven't shown you, put out by the same company. I originally got them because it's so clear and easy to see. This is the blue one. It's just a straight tube. And that's what they are. The holes have to be, thumb hole and the back hole have to be exactly in the right position and the right size. That is a nice shade of blue right there. You can't see the inside of it, but you can see how much this really is a tube. And I have a red one just like it. And it's a tube with, it looks kind of pinkish red. Actually, it looks orange on the monitor, but it actually is kind of reddish. And it's made by the same people. I'm going to try this and see if this works. You wouldn't want to do a concert with it. They'd kick you out. It's out of pitch. But anyway, it does play a little. And for children, they don't care as long as they have something to play. So I think I'll close it here. We are basically out of time. I'm going to continue by showing some pictures of these instruments, and if I have time, going into exercises, how they're written and how you play them next time. So we'll close it here. Please join me next time.